Remember, Nepal has faced a series of deadly natural disasters over the years, from devastating earthquakes to flash floods, landslides and extreme monsoon rains. As the country deals with yet another major flood disaster along the Nepal-Tibet border, here's a look back at some of the most significant natural disasters to have hit Nepal in the recent years. The devastation unfolding along the Nepal-Tibet border has sent shockwaves across the region, with rescue teams racing against time and aid pouring into the worst-hit areas. The toll has climbed to 289. In fact, it has now increased, and with each passing minute, it is increasing, while more than 826 people are still missing. Among them are 288 Indians and hundreds of tourists, leaving families desperately waiting for some news of their loved ones. Flash floods and mudslides have ripped through roads, bridges and homes as rescue and relief operations continue amid the widespread destruction. Now remember, in June last year, Raswa district was hit by a deadly flash flood triggered by a glacial lake outburst. The sudden surge of water swept through the Raswagari region, killing at least 8 people and leaving dozens missing. The floodwaters also washed away the Nepal-China Friendship Bridge. Then in September 2024, extreme rainfall had triggered widespread floods and landslides across Nepal, including in the capital Kathmandu. The Bagmati, Narayani and Koshi river basins were among the worst affected as floodwaters swept through communities. The Nepal government reported more than 200 people have been killed, with dozens more injured. In November 2023, then a powerful earthquake ripped through Jajarkot, leaving destruction and loss in its wake. The magnitude 6.4 quake claimed 154 lives and injured 934 people. More than 19,000 homes were damaged, leaving thousands to deal with the devastation. The earthquake flattened mud houses across remote communities in western Nepal. In June 2021, 2 years earlier, heavy rains triggered landslides in Melamchi, blocking the Melamchi River. The sudden river outburst sent floodwaters racing through communities, killing 5 people and leaving 20 missing. Homes were submerged while bridges and roads were damaged, leaving a trail of destruction in the flood's wake. In 2017, in August, Nepal had faced one of its worst monsoon flooding events as torrential rain swept across the country. At least 80 people had been killed, with massive flooding reported in 35 districts. The Terai region bore the brunt, with around 80% of the area inundated and nearly 50,000 homes reportedly flooded. But among the worst natural disasters that Nepal has ever witnessed, the 2015 earthquake tops the list. A magnitude 7.3 earthquake hit Barpak in Gorkha district, about 85 kilometers from Kathmandu. The quake killed 9,053 people and injured nearly 22,000 others. More than 5,000 homes were destroyed that time, while 269,000 were damaged, leaving a country to grapple with the scale of the devastation. Right, let me welcome my guest on the broadcast. Mr. Gopinath Parel is joining us. He's founder of Kaitha, to connect the tourism, development and humanitarian sectors for climate resilience. Mr. Parel, good evening. Welcome to WION. I want to start by understanding from you what you make of this entire tragedy that has taken place. Extremely unfortunate. One of the primary reasons that is being given is the glacial collapse. And if that is really the case, is it then a human-made tragedy that could have been avoided? All right, we'll try and reconnect with Mr. Parel. But as far as this disaster is concerned, remember there is a lot of speculation going on as to what might have been the reasons for this. The U.S. Geological Survey has put the prima facie reason as the glacial collapse of in that region particularly. But of course, more and more investigation into this entire tragedy will reveal what exactly had happened. There was an earthquake as well. A tremor was felt right after this glacial collapse happened. But once again, this raises the question of what could have been done to avoid a tragedy of this scale. Extremely unfortunate. Nepal is not new to this kind of tragedy. As I listed out earlier, there have been several incidents in the past, in the particular region where earthquakes, monsoon rainfalls, heavy rainfalls have led to unfortunate incidents where people have lost their lives and houses have been destroyed. All right, I believe Mr. Paryal is back with us. Mr. Paryal, we were talking about the prima facie reason that is being given, that of the glacial collapse, and if that is really the case, then could this tragedy have been avoided? Is it a human-made tragedy then?
Well, this is always a combination. So in disaster management, we always say that an earthquake is not what is killing people. It's the buildings, the structures, the lifestyle that is killing people. In this case, it's a particular combination. See, a section of glacier at roughly 5,200 meters sheared off and fell over a kilometer into the valley below. This was an ice rock avalanche, not the kind of glacier lake outbursts that Nepal has seen in the past, or even the early warning forecasting systems that Nepal has heavily invested. Like in the past decade alone, more than $35 million has been invested into setting up early warning forecasting system. But the kind of monitoring system that was looking at the rain gauges, flood gauges, it has no match to what happened right now. So then when that kind of ice falls, like, 5,200 meters shearing off completely, that impact alone, it has generated enough heat to melt huge volumes of the ice instantly. That's part of why so much of water has arrived with such force without even a drop of rain, right? And then compare that. And if you look at it like this is probably the second major glacial collapse, flood in the same corridor in just over a year.
Yes.
So it's not a freak event pattern. It's kind of a structural warning, which is something that we cannot afford to ignore any longer.
China's given a warning as well, Mr. Paryal. Then you have the states of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh here in India also being put on high alert. What do we expect hours after such a tragedy occurs? Do we expect something else that might follow in, such as a tremor that followed yesterday? What do we expect in the next few hours?
Well, since the first trigger happened around 8:30 yesterday, we've been looking at various scientific papers, and most of them are warning about the need for being hugely prepared, because the cloudburst, it's not a cloudburst, it's a glacier collapse that has really resulted in water getting logged in and then completely collapsing into breaking into the dams and breaking out of the dams and going into the valleys. And this is believed to be happening again in smaller areas, which means people in the valley needs to be evacuated even within the Indian Valley area.
Okay.
That is what we are hearing from almost every scientific study that's been happening in the past 36 hours.
So, Mr. Paryal, then, what do we do? How much of a responsibility lies on the locals as well as the governments and the tourists that go? Because this entire Himalayan stretch, right from India, China, Nepal, Bhutan, Pakistan even, this entire region has been made vulnerable over the past several years due to global warming and human activities. What is then the responsibility of the locals and the government?
Well, this is not about assigning blame for a disaster, what I would say nobody caused. It's about an accountability for what gets rebuilt next. This is where we always get it wrong. So if you look at this particular incident and disaster, 3 hydropower plants and a border crossing were built inside a known glacial flood corridor without hazard-informed design standards. That's not a rain problem. That's a siting and that's a planning problem. Now, in a river that rises, say 9 meters in 30 minutes, if I look at the records that I saw, a trained instinct to run, that beats a sensor network that hasn't reached the last mile, which means building resilience within the communities. And that community is not only about the people, it's about the hugely powerful tourism sector with $9 trillion turnover. It's about the development sector and the humanitarian sector working together, because this particular hazard sits on the Nepal-China frontier, No single government can own the responsibility for warning communities. A coordination gap. One country says that we have warned, the other country says we didn't get it on time. So that coordination gap itself is part of the disaster right now.
You talked about planning, Mr. Paryal, and I want to get to really the tiniest of the things that matter, and that is the small actions on the individual level. And because you work in this sector, you notice, is there any behavioral change? Today, you and I can talk about it on a television channel about how this needs to change and how there has been a planning issue and all of that. There can be big conferences about it, but until and unless there is individual behavioral change, as far as these activities and a contribution to global warming is concerned, nothing would change. Do you see that change happening at the moment?
Well, every disaster, we always joke within the disaster management segment that, you just remove the date, year, and a location. The mistakes are often the same. So preparedness saves lives. Everything else, the sensors, seismic data, the science, it matters less in the first 30 minutes than whether a community has drilled what to do. Now, if you look at all the videos that are spreading on social media, you can see how close people were standing there taking photographs. How many hundreds of lives, I don't know, how many we lost because of this carelessness. Because this disaster preparedness, it has to be the need to be resilient, to work in mitigation, in preparedness, and not only just response. That is so key. When you talk to, in the bottom of the pyramid, when you talk to the people level, that level of consciousness, that level of preparedness has to be drilled into our communities to avoid the kind of, last mile kind of disasters that are happening. But on a larger scenario, on a larger scenario, it's not only just the responsibility of the government. It's not just the responsibility of local or district or national governments, but it is about how multiple sectors come together. Especially, I keep repeating the tourism because Nepal economy runs on tourism, and the untapped potential of the tourism, because the logistics and supply chain that the tourism industry has, if that is tapped into during a disaster, that alone can save hundreds and hundreds of lives. But for some reason, that potential is like undermined all the time, So the tourism, development, and the humanitarian sector, it's high time that the three sectors come together and work so that the preparedness bit is really taken care of, and also the rebuilding better. It is no longer just a fancy term, because if we are not leaving room for the river to expand or to flow, these disasters are going to keep happening again and again, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'll leave it there. Mr. Gopinath Parayal, thanks very much for sharing with us your insights into what could have been done better and what needs to be done now. Thanks very much.
Thank you.